Let's talk about slowing Parkinson's disease progression. Okay, well, how can we do this? We know one thing for sure. Research shows us that via exercise, the absolute number one way to slow Parkinson's disease progression is cardio. Cardio, cardio every day. Todos los días. Okay, we're going to go into why this is the case. All right, now this could be for other degenerative conditions as well. Remember, we're talking about Parkinson's in this course. However, this applies to all people. In addition, if you're pre-genetically disposed to, let's say, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, or a number of other possible issues or diagnosis that could affect the brain, cardio can help to delay the disease onset or maybe eliminate it altogether. So one thing we know from Dr. John Ratey, who's a best-selling author who I interviewed on my podcast. If you search, if you just go to Carl with a K, sterling.net, you'll see all the episodes of the podcast. All right, and he's on there. He's a best-selling author, a Harvard Medical School professor. One of the first things he says in the interview is movement lights up the brain and humans are designed to move. A lot of us have a more sedentary lifestyle these days, and we already talked about in the course with many roles of dopamine, why it is that maybe a person with Parkinson's may tend to be a couch potato more often than they used to be, let's say. Remember, everything's a generalization, so it doesn't mean that everyone's affected like that. Okay, but movement, just getting up and moving will light up your brain. All right, well, let's talk about ways that we can move and in certain environments we can move, things we can do to help brain activity. We want to stimulate as much brain activity as possible. All right. So, for example, if we're going to be learning to do a new skill, if we're going to be firing up brain activity, well, there are 5 primary things that are going to help us to achieve this. All right. Number one is move. As a matter of fact, Dr. John Ratey says that the part of the body that probably benefits most from exercise isn't necessarily the body itself or the muscles or the neuromuscular skeletal system or the cardiovascular system. It's probably the brain. All right. We are focusing in this particular module about slowing disease progression, but I also want to add in here that these 5 things we're going to talk about here, which many of them can be combined, gives us much more input to the brain, much more brain stimulation. We're engaging so many different senses, right? We're firing up so much brain activity. This is what we want to do, is use our body, use our brain. So number 1, upper right-hand corner, move. Just get up and move. Movement is absolutely imperative. All right. If we go to the left on the top, make it fun, play. We gamify a lot of the things here in my clinic and in our workshops around the world. Now, if you can do this safely, if it's appropriate, move and gamify it outdoors. Outdoors has so many benefits for the immune system. It's actually, do you know that being outdoors is good for your vision as long as you're not getting, staring into the sun? It's good for the health of the retina. It's good for your sleep-wake cycle. It's good for your immune system to be outdoors. Go to the bottom. If you can do this outdoors or indoors if you have to, but outdoors with bare feet. All right. In the section in this course about bottom-up training, the first thing you're going to learn about is sensory input through the small nerve sensory receptors, mechanoreceptors on the plantar skin on the bottom of the feet, because that's the most highly densely populated with small nerve endings of all the skin on the body. So you wake those nerves up and get more input to your brain. This is going to give you so much more input that it's going to cause the brain to send an output to help you stabilize better, move better. All right. So barefoot outdoors, you're moving, you're gamifying, and you may want to throw in some music. Okay. Now, music doesn't have to be like music from a radio or an MP3 player or anything like that. It can be the sound of nature. It could be the birds, the water, the wind. All right. Or you can use music. And of course, you want to do exercises you like, and you want to do the kind of movement you like. Remember, we are going to focus this module on cardio and slowing disease progression, but get outdoors, gamify, use music, maybe nature's your music, do it barefoot, just move. Okay. If nothing else, just get moving. All right. So again, the best known method of slowing disease progression via exercise is cardio. We want to get blood and oxygen to the brain. And when we do cardio, we're going to be creating what we call BDNF. What is brain-derived neurotrophic factor? It's in the next slide. But I want to repeat to you, research shows us the best known way of slowing disease progression via exercise is cardio and elevated heart rate. Let's talk about some factors here. First of all, the intensity should be the equivalent of, if you can do it, and remember, this is everyone's different, and I can do what you can. It's better to do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of something than to do nothing at all. However, minimum 20 minutes, 30 is much more preferable of elevated heart rate with the equivalent intensity of walking as fast as possible for that duration of time. Okay. That's all. It doesn't have to be HIIT training. It doesn't have to be Tabata training. It can just be walking as fast as possible and be safe. You know, you don't want to put yourself at a fall risk. But by doing this, that gives you enough time, 20 minutes minimum. This comes from Stony Brook. I'll tell you about it in a minute. This gives enough time for the brain to kick into gear and create what we call basically a miracle grow for the brain. Some people don't like the saying. I love the saying because it helps the brain in a lot of different ways. Okay. On the left, if we take somebody in the blue area, depression, on the left of this slide, and we look at somebody who is, let's say, sedentary, they're not moving too much, or maybe they're, not moving hardly at all. Well, a lot of times they may be more tendency to have a tendency to be more depressed. There's less neuron activity for sure. Okay. So lack of activity can cause more stress, more anxiety, more depression, less neuron activity. And of course, maybe even muscle atrophy and brain atrophy from not exercising. Your brain needs to move to get blood and oxygen and BDNF and other growth hormones to circulate. So you preserve, which is on the right here down at the bottom, cell survival, cellular survival, brain cells. They need to survive. We don't want them to be dying. And we know in Parkinson's, we have brain cells that are dying off and in the brain, particularly and mostly in the substantia nigra. We already talked about this and what's going on in there. So on the left, we have maybe definitely less active lifestyle, maybe not so happy, maybe more depressed. However, have you ever done this? I tend to wake up sad a lot. I know if I just get moving 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, I feel better, or later in the day, I'm tired and I don't really want to go to CrossFit or I don't want to do it. If I go, I always feel better and I have more energy and I'm happier. So we enrich our environment with, let's say, physical exercise. Cardio is going to be number one. Mental stimulation, social interactions, do things you like to do, and specifically do exercises that you like to and you will do. Okay. Be in an active state. You're going to increase neuron activity in the brain. The brain, basically, it's going to be like producing these chemicals, neurochemicals and hormones that act as a natural antidepressant, as Dr. Deepak Chopra says in various books of his. The brain is like your human pharmacy. It has everything you need to live a good life, to feel good, right? To feel emotionally good. Now, yes, there are exceptions to every rule, but bottom line is most people who are in an active state, they increase neuron activity, increase BDNF production. Well, they get into a better state of neurogenesis, brain maturation, and cellular survival. It also increases the ability for improving neuroplasticity. We want to be moving. All right. Now, cardio specifically is the best way to produce, I can't emphasize this enough, the best way to produce this miracle growth for the brain. Okay. What's great? What's so great about BDNF, miracle growth for the brain, they call it? Okay, well, it helps keep certain chemicals in the system longer, so there's a better chance of uptake of those chemicals, okay? This includes medications. The better chance of use of these chemicals exist because they are there for longer. Take medications, for example, which we'll talk about in the next slide. We know that BDNF is going to help prevent some cell death. Okay, it's going to help to promote long-term maintenance so the disease does not progress as quickly. And that's what this is all about, is slowing disease progression. Once again, the mother of skill is repetition. And I repeat again, as I said, I'd be repeating a lot of things. The take-home message here is via exercise, cardio is the #1 proven way to slow disease progression and manage disease. Well, managing disease symptoms we'll get into, but it can help to better manage disease symptoms once we get into that part of the course. Okay, now I also put in a qualifier here. Remember, we're not saying we're going to stop the disease, okay, but we can likely slow its progression and improve quality of life. Although there are studies out there, one in particular by the Shriver Foundation. In 2017, it came out that showed that a number of people with early stage Alzheimer's who did 30 minutes of cardio per day, 5 days a week for 6 months, all scored higher at the end of 6 months on the cognition and memory test than they did in the beginning. So what does that tell us? Well, cardio helped, because it can also help to give birth to new brain cells. We also know that if you're genetically predisposed to something, it can help to delay disease onset in many cases. All right. BDNF is best produced by intense direct cardio exercise, not just random exercise. Minimum 20 minutes per day. We talked about it. 30 minutes is much more preferable, or even more. So do what you will do. Do what you like to do. Running, brisk walking, boxing, arm sprints, seated boxing. You don't even have to stand up to do cardio. Bicycling, Stairmaster, swimming. Do what you will do to get that heart rate elevated. Do what you will do to get that heart rate elevated. Elevated heart rate, cardio. That's what we need to produce BDNF. That'll help preserve cellular structure. It helps to promote long-term maintenance. We talked about it already. It bears repeating, so disease won't progress as quickly. It will likely allow dopaminergic and other meds, it's like levodopa, carbidopa, Sinemet, to enter the system faster and stay in the system longer. If you go to the nutrition module in this course, you're going to find my discussion with dietitian. She's amazing, Cynthia Lopez. She also talks about how, and we're talking Parkinson's, nutrition and Parkinson's, and that specifically, this will help the uptake of minerals, vitamins, medications, okay, BDNF, which means cardio, okay? We want to have a quicker uptake. We want them to be more effective, get into the system faster, and have a longer lasting effect. Now, remember, and we see again, this is Dr. Lisa Morituri, a lot of this comes from, the program itself is not intended to replace medications provided by your or prescribed by your physician or your expert or your neurologist. So I have to say, always check with your physician before beginning an exercise program. If you already know you can exercise, I'll leave it up to you on what to do, but we do have to put in a disclaimer. So that's it, folks. This is, oh, by the way, you want to get into this, wake up the nervous system and the brain. I just went to that slide by mistake. Well, guess what? Check out that area, bottom-up training in this course. You're going to love it. So we're not saying we can stop the disease, but we can probably help to slow it down and create a better quality of life. That's what it's all about, folks. Okay, that's it for this section, and we'll see you in the next module.